I'm about to tell you something that took me 9 years, 2 falls, and one long night on a cold bathroom floor to truly understand. My name is Margaret Elaine. I am 98 years old, and I very nearly died alone in my own home, not because I was weak, not because I was sick, but because no one ever told me what living alone after 60 really demands from you. When my husband Richard passed away on a quiet Tuesday morning, I believed I was prepared. I had the house, I had the savings, I had my independence. I was 90 years old at the time, and I had never spent a single night alone in my entire life. Not one. I went from my parents' home straight into Richard's arms, and for 60 years there was always someone beside me. And then suddenly there wasn't. And what happened after that, what I learned through fear, through pain, through moments that came far too close to the end, that's what I need to share with you today. Because if even one person listening to me avoids what I went through, then every painful lesson I learned will finally mean something. 3 months after Richard died, early one morning, just after sunrise, I stepped out of the shower and my foot slipped. I fell hard. My head struck the edge of the sink. And just like that, everything changed. My phone was in the bedroom, 20 feet away. It might as well have been on the other side of the world. I was lying there on that cold tile floor, wet, dizzy, unable to stand, and completely alone. 6 hours. That's how long I stayed there. 6 hours of silence. 6 hours of wondering if this was how it would end. It wasn't pain that scared me the most. It was the thought that no one would know, not until it was too late. At 3 in the afternoon, my neighbor Sarah noticed something small. My newspaper was still sitting outside on the porch. She had a spare key, one her husband insisted she keep years ago. That decision saved my life. When the paramedics arrived, one of them looked at me and said something I have never forgotten. Another couple of hours, and this would have ended very differently. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I realized a truth that shook me to my core. I wasn't living alone. I was surviving alone, and those are not the same thing, not even close. So when I came home from that hospital, I made a decision. If I was going to stay in my home, I was going to do it properly, not with hope, not with luck, but with systems, simple, quiet, life-saving systems. The first thing I created was something I now call a silent check-in. No technology, no subscriptions, no feeling like I was being watched. Every single morning before 9, I move a small flower pot on my porch, from the left side to the right. That's it. Sarah can see it from her kitchen window while she drinks her coffee. If that pot hasn't moved by 10, she comes to check on me. If I don't answer, she lets herself in. 5 seconds of effort. That's all it takes. 5 seconds. That could mean the difference between life and death. So if you live alone, and nobody would know within a few hours if something happened to you, then listen carefully. That is the first thing you fix. Not next week, not someday, today. The second lesson was harder for me to accept because it forced me to admit something I didn't want to believe. My memory could no longer carry everything by itself. When Richard was alive, we were each other's safety net. He remembered what I forgot. I remembered what he missed. Together we functioned as one complete system. But now it was just me, and within weeks, small cracks began to show. I took my medication twice. I paid the same bill 2 times. I stood in my kitchen, unsure if I had already eaten. It frightened me, not because I was losing my mind, but because I had lost my backup. So I did something simple, something that changed everything. I bought a plain paper notebook. Every morning I write the date. I record my medications, my meals, my bills, anything that matters. Some people might think that's a sign of decline, but let me tell you the truth. It is not weakness, it is intelligence. Your brain deserves support, just like anything else that matters. Now, before I go any further, if this kind of honest conversation, real experience, not sugar-coated advice, means something to you, then take a moment and subscribe to Wisdom of Age. Because what we talk about here is not theory. It is not motivation. It is lived experience, the kind you usually only understand after it's too late. And what I'm about to share next might be the most important part of this entire conversation, because the third lesson nearly broke me before it saved me. When the paramedics came for my second fall, and yes, there was a second fall, they didn't panic. They didn't waste time asking questions I couldn't answer, because within 30 seconds they found the yellow folder. Everything they needed was right there. My medications, my allergies, my emergency contacts. One of them looked at me and said something I will never forget. This probably saved you. And that's when it truly hit me. When you live alone, you don't get a second chance to explain things. You prepare or you risk everything. That folder became my voice for the moments when I might not have one. The fifth thing was something I resisted longer than I want to admit, because it felt like giving up. A medical alert button, a simple device sitting on my wrist. One press and help is on the way. I told myself, that's for people who are helpless. That's not me. But then came that second fall, 3 hours, on the floor, unable to stand, waiting, hoping, praying someone would check on me. The next morning, I put it on, and I haven't taken it off since, not because I gave up my independence, but because I decided to protect it. The sixth thing changed something I didn't expect, my daily energy. I stopped forcing my home to match who I used to be and started adapting it to who I am now. Heavy pots? Moved up. Everyday dishes? Within reach. That stubborn can opener? Gone. Replaced with something that didn't fight my hands. I even brought a chair into the kitchen so I could sit while cooking, and something surprising happened. I started enjoying it again, because here's the truth nobody tells you. Your home should support your body, not test it. The seventh lesson required something harder than strength, honesty, because when you live alone, no one is watching closely enough to notice when something is wrong. So you have to become that person for yourself. I ignored dizziness. I called it stress. I ignored pain. I called it age. I ignored tightness in my chest and told myself I was just anxious. But none of it was nothing. One issue was a medication interaction. One was something that needed treatment, and one could have ended very differently. That's when I made a rule. If something feels wrong, I don't wait, because waiting is where independence quietly slips away. The eighth thing is so small. Most people dismiss it, but it held my life together. Every morning, 7:00 a.m., same chair, same mug, same porch, 10 minutes. That's it. No phone, no distractions, just sitting and beginning the day. And on the mornings when grief felt heavy, when the silence felt louder than it should, those 10 minutes reminded me, I'm still here, and I still get to choose how this day begins. Find something like that and protect it, because routine is what turns empty time into stable ground. The ninth thing surprised me the most, because I thought connection had to come from other people. But sometimes people aren't there when you need them. So I created my own. I started writing letters, not to send, but to feel. Letters to my husband, letters to my younger self, letters to the version of me that didn't know how strong she would have to become. And something shifted. I didn't feel as alone anymore, because meaning isn't something you wait for. It's something you build. And the 10th thing is the one that keeps everything else working. I learned to ask for help before things fall apart. Because here's what no one warns you about. When you wait until you're desperate, you lose control. Problems get bigger, decisions get rushed, and suddenly choices aren't yours anymore. I learned that the hard way. A small problem at home turned into an expensive emergency just because I waited too long. Now, I don't wait. If something feels off, I act. If I need help, I ask. Light bulb, I call someone. Heavy box, I don't lift it. Something feels wrong in my body. I don't ignore it. And you know what? It didn't make me weaker. It made me stay here. I am 98 years old, and I still wake up in my own bed, in my own home, every single morning. Not because I was lucky, not because I was stronger than everyone else, but because I built systems that protect me on my worst days, that support me when I'm tired, and that keep me safe without taking away my freedom. Every morning, when I move that flower pot, when I pour my coffee, when I open my notebook, I feel something most people overlook: gratitude, real quiet, steady gratitude for the neighbor who watches without being asked, for the small systems that hold my life together, for the second chances I almost didn't get. So if you're living alone or someone you love is, listen carefully. You are not one bad day away from losing everything. You are one smart decision away from making sure you don't. Start with one thing, just one, because that one thing might be the reason you're still here tomorrow. And if this kind of truth, real, lived, hard-earned wisdom, is something you value, stay with us, because we're not here to entertain you. We're here to tell you the things no one else does. Take care of yourself. You are worth protecting.